So how do we test for gold, silver, platinum, and precious metals? It's a question a lot of people ask me all the time, and it's very pertinent these days, especially to people that are getting into the business. Everyone's watching American Pickers or Storage Wars, where we're buying storage units or we're buying things at stores, and we're trying to determine, do we strike some gold, silver, or platinum? So what we can do is we can explain to you how we do it here in downtown Largo in our brick and mortar store, where we've been buying and selling since 1972. I think I was on the buying counters probably when I was about 7 years old, helping my dad buy and sell coins and test for gold. So I had a long history of buying, and I feel like I'm pretty experienced. I'm going to try to pass some of the tips and tricks our family has learned throughout the time that we've been in business. So first, we're going to start with, what is it that we need for our testing kit? Well, I don't buy and sell acid or testing kits, but acid is the main thing that we use. We use a kit, and in that kit is 3 different acids. Now, you can get these kits. There's a lot of different kits that you get online. I can't sell them, but there's places you can look online and buy a kit. Generally, they have 10-karat acid, 14-karat acid, 18-karat acid, and 22-karat acid. There's also a silver acid. But let me tell you a little surprising trick that nobody knows. When I learned how to buy gold and silver, there was 14-karat acid, there was 18-karat acid, a little stuck in there, guys, we're only human, and then there was 22-karat acid. Now, all of the other acids are pretty good, but when I was growing up, this is all we had, and so we had to figure out, how do we make a test with just these 3 acids? And again, as I was saying, you know, there's many different acids you can use, but there are a lot of things that can be confused. So we stick with the 3 basics, and I've bought probably in the last 10 years a couple $100 million worth of scrap gold. So when I'm speaking from experience. Yes, you can just use these 3, and it makes a lot more sense. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to go through exactly what we need to do. We're going to explain to you that you need a testing kit. Now, what's in the testing kit? Again, the 3 acids, a testing stone, a box to carry it in, a rare earth magnet, and a file. These are the main things that we use to test gold, silver, platinum, and precious metals all the time. So at this point, we're going to also talk about the testing stone, because it's a key ingredient. So you order your test kit in, and what do you get? You get all these acids and the testing stone. This testing stone comes in, and it is a slab of, it's kind of like a sharpening stone. I'm using a fresh one right here so you guys can see exactly what it is. It's a dark stone, comes from mined in Arkansas. And what it is you rub the metal on here, and then you drop the acids on there, and how it reacts, it shows you exactly what you should be looking for, whether it turns different colors. We'll be talking more about that later. But the reason I'm taking this testing stone out is the first thing you have to do, it's a must do. If you don't do this, you will not get a good test. So this is going to be a part of the video that we're going to go ahead and pause just for a second, because this is going to be, how do I season my stone and how do I clean my stone? Okay, so you just got your testing kit and you got this stone in here. It just came from the factory. A must do is you have to take some 400 grit sandpaper right here. You have to tear this off, little piece. You take the piece of stone and you sand it. You know, we'll call it sand it vigorously. And you don't have to go crazy. Just, this is about all you're going to need. Just exactly what I'm doing right here. All right. Once you sand it, you'll feel it's definitely smoother. But what we need to do after that is, I'm not going to do it here because it's going to have chemicals and we got some camera equipment here. You would take the 14-karat acid and you put a little dab on here, and you would take a tissue, a lightly tissue, and dab that dab on there so that it's evenly on the stone, and it will turn the stone a little dark. You let it sit here for probably about 30 seconds to a minute. And then once it's been on there for 30 seconds to a minute, you take a big tissue, a big ball of it, because you remember the acid can drip down the sides of the stone. And what happens? You're going to get acid on your fingers. You're going to get acid everywhere. You don't want to do that. So typically what I do is I leave the stone on a surface, put the seasoning on there, and then I take a tissue and I wipe it off without touching it with my other hand because the acid will be going everywhere. And then you take the tissue and put it in a separate bag so it doesn't get thrown in the trash. And you basically get some more tissue till it's perfectly dry. You pick it up, you wipe it off, make sure there's no acid anywhere because you don't want it on your hands and fingers. But once you season the stone, you'll get the correct readings. And we'll talk more about the readings later. But this is an important step because if you don't season your stone like this, you will not get the correct readings. And then we'll go right into the same topic. How do I clean my stone? Well, what I just did is basically cleaning your stone for the first time. So say you have this stone for 6 months and all these little gold scratches are everywhere. You take the sandpaper again, you sand it all off of here, just like I'm doing now, and you season the stone again. So it's almost like rinse, repeat, do it again. And this will keep your stone giving the correct readings, and will also make it so that you don't have a bunch of little gold streaks everywhere and you get confused as to what was the mark I put on there, what's going on. So the last thing I need to touch on right now is we talked about acid going everywhere on your clothes, everywhere. When I was a youngster and I was 12 years old, I was sitting at the counter and bam, the acid bottle fell on my jeans. I didn't tell anybody. I was like, oh my God, what do I do? And I was too embarrassed at the time. I was 12 years old. The last thing you want to do is take off your pants in front of everybody. So I nonchalantly walked over to the bathroom. And then by the time I got there, by the time I had, taken my pants down, and there was just a little spot on my leg right there. But what it is it slowly seeps in, and it can cause 3rd-degree burns. So if you do buy an acid testing kit, make sure you read all the regulations, read all the warnings. You have to keep this stuff very safe. Again, we don't sell it. I'm not recommending it. I'm just saying if you're going to be using an acid test kit, you need to understand all the things that could go wrong with it. I have a scar on my leg to this day from that. And it took about 6 months for that wound to heal because it's a burn wound. The only reason I'm going into this detail is you have to understand how dangerous this can be. You do not want this laying around so the grandkids can get it or so your daughter can get it. You don't want it in your car where it can get overheated and explode. Again, all of these things are on the warning labels if you buy an acid test kit from someone. But again, read those warnings and heed them. This test kit had been sitting around a while. I don't know if our cameraman can get this. But this here is what happened to a magnet that was left in there. It's green, it's corroded, it's nasty, and these bottles are still sealed. So what I'm trying to say, please remember this is a dangerous test kit if not handled properly. I have the proof of it. So what happens if you do spill acid somewhere? Listen, they sell solutions. If you're going to buy the test kit, buy the solution. It's an agent where you basically, if you spill acid anywhere, you drop the solution on it, it nullifies it. It basically counteracts it, and it's a base, and it neutralizes the acid, including your leg. Had I had that base back in the old days, I would have just sprayed it all on my skin, wiped it off, and nothing would have happened. But what happened is I didn't. All I had was baking soda, which is the next best thing. So if you're going to have an acid test kit, you have to have that solution. If for some reason you don't have the solution and something happens, baking soda will work as well. Baking soda will neutralize the acid. So what you do, spill acid somewhere, pour large amounts of baking soda, let it neutralize it, and then after some time period, clean it up, and you should be good to go. So that explains how to season your stone, clean your stone, how to be very careful, read the instructions that you get from your warnings, and also how to protect yourself if acid does get somewhere. Again, we're going to go on now to testing metals and precious metals. So how do we use this test kit? Well, basically, again, we're going to concentrate on the 3 acids. We're going to concentrate on the 14, 18, and 22. We're going to talk about the file, the magnet, the stone, and basically a loop. Again, let me say the first things that we need to talk about as far as doing precious metals is you have to take a look at the piece as a whole and take a look at it. The first test that people generally use for precious metals, we'll call this the first test, the magnet test. So again, we'll call this the first test, the magnet test. The magnet test is a very simple pre-screening test. If you have items that you think may or may not be precious metals, you take your magnet, and we don't suggest using a refrigerator magnet or some kind of weak magnet. we suggest the rare earth magnet. This rare earth magnet has 55 pounds of pull. Watch what it can do to this file. Picks it up, no problem. Matter of fact, you have to pull it off of there. You don't want some weak magnet that's not going to give you a correct test. So just like the picked up the file, this magnet will pick up base metal. So if you run the magnet over your gold or silver item that you think may or may not be gold or silver, if it is attracted to the magnet, it is not precious metals. So that's what we call the first test. It's a pre-screen, but if your item attracts to the magnet, it's not gold, silver, or platinum, or any precious metal. But again, remember, just because it doesn't stick to the magnet doesn't mean it is a precious metals. Okay, so now we're talking about how do we test for 10 karat gold. In all these testings, there's going to be two types of tests. One is called a destructive test, which actually when you put the file on an item, you're going to file into the item, you're going to drop the acid directly onto the item and look for reaction. The problem is it does hurt the item and can destroy something that's worth more. There's also what we call the non-destructive test. This goes back to our stone. When we think we have something that might have some kind of value above and beyond just metal value, but we still need to know if it's gold or not, what we do is we take that item and we're going to use a very simple item. We're going to use my loop, which is made out of 22 karat gold. But I'm so confident that this is a non-destructive test, I'm willing to take my loop right now, rub it right onto the stone, and what it does is it leaves that little streak that we're talking about, and it doesn't leave any mark on my loop. So a customer that might say, well, don't touch that, I don't want you to destroy it. Well, you're not destroying it. This is basically a non-destructive test. So after we get the rub on the 10 karat, let's say we have something we think is 10 karat gold, we put it on here, we rub it. Again, we're going to go back to the three types of acids that we have. A lot of people will tell you, use the 10 karat acid, it works, but I'll tell you what, I don't use it. You want to know why? Because 10 karat acid will give a false reading on heavy gold filled. And you don't want to have a false reading. You don't want to buy a big ring that you think is 10 karat gold, then you come to someone like me that really knows how to test it, and I have to give you the bad news, it's not 10 karat, it's gold filled, because the difference between gold and gold filled is 10 or 20 times. So you don't want to make that mistake. So the 14 karat acid's a little stronger. You rub a piece of 10 karat on here. You drop, again, we're camera equipment, so I can't use these acids in here. But if you drop it on here and you drop it on, if it's 10 karat gold, it will turn a light brown color. It will not turn a dark brown color, but you'll see the streak kind of fade a little bit to brown. That means it is 10 karat. A lot of people think, well, if it didn't make it go away, it must be 14 karat. No, if it's 14 karat, again, it'll stay there, but we're talking about 10 karat. So if you put a streak on here and it turns a dark brown color, it is 10 karat. Now let's say you have a heavy piece of jewelry that you're really not sure what it is, but my gosh, if you buy it and it's gold filled, it could be a $1,000, $2,000 mistake. Unfortunately, you're going to have to do a destructive test. Even on my loop, there's that magnet again. Even on my loop, like just say, you can find a place, even on my loop, this is my very expensive gold loop, but I could find a little flat spot on here. I could file it just like I'm literally filing my loop right in front of you. There it is. That would take up just that little pressure. You'll see a little blank spot here. I did file it, but you can always buff it back out, and I will buff my loop back out. But again, you drop the 14 karat acid neatly on there, watching your fingers because, again, you got to be careful. And basically, if it turns it dark brown on here, again, it's going to be 10 karat gold. If it turns it no color, it's 14. But again, talking about 10 karat gold, if it bubbles green, if it bubbles any color, any kind of bubbling, it's probably not gold 95% of the time. So now we're going to go ahead and switch to how do we test for 14 karat. So how do we test for 14 karat? Again, the test for 14 karat is very similar to all the tests that we do for 10, 14, 18, and platinum, but you're looking for different results. So what we do, if we're looking for a non-destructive test, again, a non-destructive test is when you don't want to destroy a piece of jewelry because someone thinks it's worth a lot of money, You take your item, just like I'm taking my loop for 14 karat. I did this for the 10, but we'll do it again every step of the way. You rub the loop on here. You look here, you can't even see a spot, but this stone is harder than metal. So that's why they call it a streak stone. It actually leaves a streak of the metal on here. I take my 14 karat acid, I put it on here, and if it doesn't do anything, if it just stays exactly the way it is, no change, that means it's 14 karat. If it turns brown, that's 10 karat. If it goes away all the way, it's not anything. So again, for a 14 karat test, we're looking for a basically no change on your streak stone. Now let's just say, again, I always tell my people here, if you can lose $500 or more on the deal, and your budget may not be the same, your budget might be 50 or 100, but here, if I tell my people, if I can lose $500 a deal on a mistake you're making, I want you to file into the piece ever so slightly. And just like I did for the 10 karat, you can, even this loop here that costs a lot of money, there's a place you can find on just about any piece of jewelry. You take a little file, and I'm literally filing, the camera people are probably aghast, think, why is he filing his loop? But I'm trying to demonstrate for you that you can find a nice spot. You take the 14 karat acid, you dab a little on there, and you're looking for no reaction. If it turns dark brown, it's 10 karat. If it bubbles any color, anything, green, any black, anything, it's not gold. Don't buy it. But again, to dealers, there's a lot of people out there laying people away by extra coating items, especially when it comes to 14 karat and 10 karat. So if you're a dealer out there and you're thinking, hey, I got this piece, and it can cost you $500 more, you better be filing into this, because I've had so many dealers literally turn white in front of me, almost look like they're going to faint, because all of a sudden they spent thousands of dollars on something that I just took a little file, dropped it on there and said, it's bubbling green, it's not real. And they said, well, it worked on here. Well, it does. It works on the streak test, because the people that are trying to lay you away and get you to buy something that's not real, coat it with enough gold that they know it'll test good on here. So again, if it's going to be a costly mistake, I'm hoping you're going to use this file and protect yourselves. So now we're going to go ahead and go on to 18 karat and how to test for that. Okay, so how do we test for 18 karat gold? Again, all of these tests that I've been talking about are basically repetitive, but we're looking for different results, or we may be using a different acid. So testing for 18 karat acid is, again, you've seasoned your stone, you're ready to go, someone's got a piece of what you think is 18 karat, you do exactly what I've done on these other tests. You rub the 18 karat on here, it leaves a nice little streak on here, and then you take your 18 karat acid. Now, as you see, these are color coded. Green is 14 karat, whatever color code you have, but remember what it is. Green is 14 karat in my test kit, red top is 18 karat, blue top is 22 karat. So it's a good idea, here's a little tip, don't take a bunch of tops off and then accidentally put the wrong top on, because you're going to get a bad reading, and then you're going to read the side of your bottle and say, oh my gosh, that thing tested for 18 karat and I used the wrong acid. So always keep your color-coded tops on the right ones. So for this one, we're going to drop the 18 karat acid directly onto the streak. So with 18 karat gold, if it's 18 karat gold, you will see no change. What that means is, if when you apply it, there's no change, you can be assured it's 18 karat gold, and that's the non-destructive test. Again, that's if someone has a Cartier ring or a Tiffany ring or something they don't want destroyed, go ahead and give it the acid test and just double check. If perchance there's a lot of Asian gold that's marked 18 karat and it's 16 karat or 14 karat, so if you drop the acid on that streak of a piece that even South American 18 karat gold, and it looks like a hand stamp, and it slowly disappears, very slowly, like all of a sudden it turns a little dark, a little dark, a little dark, chances are it's 16 karat gold. But don't buy it for 18 karat. I personally, when that happens, there's no real test for 16 karat. So if it doesn't hold up to the 18, I purchase it for 14. So basically, that is the non-destructive test. What is the destructive test? Again, I tell people all the time, if you're buying a piece of jewelry that can cost you over $500, maybe your budget's smaller, but if it can cost over $500, I tell my people, scratch into it. Again, third time I'm scratching my loop. We're going to file the loop ever on the sides. And if you're watching this video, this is the third time I filed it, but you can find a spot like this on just about any piece. Then drop the 18 karat directly on there. You're looking for no reaction. If it bubbles up in any manner, chances are it's not gold. If it turns dark, chances are it's not, probably maybe 14 karat, but I don't test that way. On 18 karat, what I do is if I file it and I drop the 14 karat acid on there and there's no change, then I know it's at least 14 karat. Then what I do is I take the same exact spot where I filed it, I rub it on here, gives a loud noise sometimes. Then I drop the 18 karat acid on there, and then I'm looking for no change. That means I've tested it on the piece with the 14, found out it's solid gold, not plated. Then I've rubbed where I tested it on here, used the 18 karat acid, no change, means it's 18 karat gold. If it fades away and it had no reaction, 14 karat. If it turns dark when it's on here directly, it's 10 karat. But again, what we're looking for is no change with the 18 karat acid. So what I'd like to talk about next is, what are some of the things that are waiting and laying in wait out there for professionals or for someone that's going through the picking process? So now we're going to talk about a few pitfalls that you can run across with all of the metals. Okay, so what are some of the pitfalls that I see regularly? And what I mean by pitfalls, what are these things that can come in across your counters, or that you can buy at a garage sale or buy at an auction, that can cost you money because you think it's gold, it looks like gold, and chances are it was made to look like gold. Well, one of the oldest things in the book, biggest tricks that I've seen all the way back in 1950s and 40s actually, in Italy, after the war, Europe was kind of poor. They would take these gold-filled bracelets, they would put a heap of extra gold plating on them, and then they would take them to the GIs and they'd say, hey, buy this for your honey, buy this for your wife, buy this for your mom. And they'd look at it and they'd pick it up and think, man, this looks like it's real. And they'd give the guy, a couple $100 at the time, which the thing was probably still worth $1,000 at the time. And they'd send it home, and grandma would wear it, mom would wear it, then mom would turn into grandma, or mom would turn into, somebody that just wanted to sell it. So then they come to us. This is all the way back 25, 30 years ago. And we would take a look at it, and we would look at these heavy bracelets, and they were made to deceive. All you have to do with these things, and there's a lot of them, they say 18 karat Italy, heavy gold bracelets, you have to file them. You have to file anything that's going to cost you $500, maybe your budget's $100. You have to file into them because there's a lot of them out there. More recently, people started wearing white gold. So, well, hey, let's get some white gold out there. Well, guess what? People soon realized these guys, especially during the gold rush of 2011, 12, and 13, let's make some things out of stainless steel, and let's stamp them 18 karat or stamp them 750, and let's take them to these shops, because why are they made out of stainless steel? And that's a good question. Because stainless steel, when you rub it on here and you put the 18 karat acid on there, will not react. So what does that mean? Well, what that means is the 18 karat acid does not protect you from that. So if you drop it on there and if you rub the 18 karat on here, it stays still. If you rub the stainless on there, it stays. So how do you protect yourself? Well, one test that you can do is if you put, and we're going to segue after this thing into 22 karat acid, but it's why we have the 22 karat acid, is if you rub an 18 karat chain on here or 18 karat bracelet and you put the 22 karat acid, it will fade brown fairly quickly. It'll fade brown and go away. On stainless steel, if you put the 22 karat acid on there and you rub it on there, it will sit there for probably 4, 5, 10 seconds, and then it will almost flash a yellow color and disappear. If you see that any kind of flash of yellow or any kind of greenish yellow, stay away from it. Chances are it's stainless steel. But this brings up another point. Now, listen, acid testing is only part of the game. If you're out there and you're trying to make a living off of this, and someone's got an 18 karat bracelet they're trying to lay you away with, you've got to use all your senses. You got to use your eyes. You've got to look at the stamp. Does the stamp look good in there? Because stainless steel doesn't take stamps very well. So sometimes it's a partial stamp, or the stamp looks kind of crude in the piece. Also, how heavy is the piece? 18 karat gold is extremely dense. I would say that 18 karat gold would weigh 2 to 3 times what a stainless steel piece would weigh. So if you have a heavy duty stainless steel piece, you got to look at that weight. If it doesn't feel dense, it's probably not going to be gold. It might take you some time, but that's where I say if you're really in doubt about it, you should definitely see someone like myself or call us. So again, those are just some of the pitfalls that you can run into, but those are the main ones. Also, not so long back, there was these kids in the area. I won't call them kids. I guess I'm 53 now. Kids being in their 20s. They were getting this gold-filled heavy wire, and they were taking it and bending it and turning it into bracelets. And then you went on your stone, you rubbed it, and guess what? It tested perfectly again. But these things were costing people $300 to $500. So my best bet is you have to look at these things. Taking a look at it, you look at it and you think, this thing doesn't weigh like it should. It should be denser. Now, if you're inexperienced, it's one thing, but no matter what, again, always remember, take the file, rub the piece of merchandise, drop the 14 karat acid directly on it. If you drop the 14 karat acid on anything that's not a precious metal, whether you're testing for silver, gold, or whatever, it will bubble green, it will bubble black, it will bubble something. But when you see that bubbling, stay away from it. Again, we're going to segue now probably into testing for 22 karat gold. Okay, so this brings us to testing for 22 karat gold, or gold that's higher carat than basically 18 karat. There's 21 karat, there's 22 karat, there's 23 karat, and 24. Predominantly what you're going to see out there is 21 and 22. Occasionally you'll see some 23, but not often, and not very often you'll see 24 karat gold. My loop happens to be made out of 22 karat gold. Again, we want to look, remember, when you're doing these testing, I probably should have hit this earlier, you have to use all your senses. 22 karat gold is a nice, pleasing yellow color. It's alloyed with very little, and it has the actual natural color of gold. So how do we test for 22 karat acid? Again, the first test is always, always, always file the piece gently, but you can file it where there's enough gold coming off. And again, the 4th time I filed it if you're watching this video. What we do is we don't put the 22 karat directly on there. We always start with the 14 karat. We put the 14 karat on there. Why? Because if there's a base metal, the 14 karat acid will react to the base metal. Why? Because 14 karat acid is nitric acid. 18 karat acid and above is aqua regia. Aqua regia doesn't always react the same way 14 karat does. But every time 14 karat acid hits a base metal, it will bubble something. And when you see that bubbling, it's a sign to stay away. So now that we've put the 14 karat acid on here, and we've determined that it is gold, we want to rub it on here. And what I generally do is I'll make 2 rubs. I'll rub one rub and another one right next to it. Then I take my 18 karat acid and my 22 karat acid is, first of all, I put my 18 karat acid on there. And if it stays, I know that it's better than 18 karat acid. So what I'm looking for is no reaction. I don't want to see any reaction at all. So once we get the no reaction from that, what I also like to do is then move to the 22 karat acid. Now 22 karat acid is very tricky to use because I'll tell you what it takes to make you know is experience. So when you drop the 22 karat acid on the streak, if it's 21 karat, it will slowly disappear. If it's 22 karat acid, it will stay there basically and do nothing. Now, is there any test for pure? There's no test for pure, so my advice to you is, even if it's marked pure gold, only buy it for 22 karat, because there's no way you're going to know if it's above that. You're not a refinery, and you shouldn't be expected to know. So again, what are we looking for? We did the test, we filed it, we dropped the 14 karat acid, no reaction. We did the 2-streak test, we dropped the 18 karat, no reaction. We know it's better than 18. We do the 3rd streak, slowly disappears. It's most likely 21. If it disappears at a rapid rate, it's 18 karat. And if it stays there, it's 22 karat acid, 22 karat gold. But it's got to stay there with no reaction. But I'm going to tell you what, of all the tests that I do, this is the trickiest one of all because it basically is hard to do it. It takes a lot of experience. And sometimes you can get burned anyways. I'm just being honest with you. So my suggestion to you is if you put it on the first test and it's 18 karat, buy it for the 18 karat. If it fades at all, don't try to guess if it's 21 or 20 or 19 karat. If it fades at all, just buy it for 18 karat. Again, that will keep you safe. So again, I hope that helps. Now we're going to talk about some other important tests that you need to be on the look for. Okay, we've talked about some of the things we can look for, but let's talk about gold filled. Now gold filled is items that are made a certain way or heavy gold plate that basically can fool you, and they can even test 10 karat on the streak test. If you don't file far enough into it, they can also not test at all. My recommendation is if you have, let's just say there's an item that someone has and you're not really sure if it's gold or not gold, but they're like, I don't want you to touch this. If you put a file next to it, not everybody's like me. They aren't going to let you just file their loop. I don't want you to file that piece of jewelry. So what you can do is if you're worried it's gold filled, you can take the item. This is, again, explain to the person this is a non-destructive test. Actually, let them feel your stone. It's a very smooth stone. It's harder than metals, but it's still smooth. So because it's harder than metals, when you rub it, it takes that piece of metal off. But it's nothing they can see. So if you're testing for gold filled or something you think might be like trying to trick you, one of the tests that we do is we do 3 firm rubs. Now, I haven't mentioned this, but all the rubs you should be doing should be fairly firm. You want to leave a streak. You may even hear that noise. But you want to, for gold-filled items or something you think might be gold-filled, you want to rub 3 separate rubs. You want to basically have 1, 2, 3. And then what you do is for gold-filled items, you don't worry about if it's 18 karat or whatever. You just take the 14 karat acid and you have 3 streaks on here. What I do is I put the acid on each streak. Most of the times if it's gold-filled, the first streak will stay. The second streak will kind of disappear, but if it's gold filled, if you've rubbed it hard enough, just like I said, the third streak will disappear. What that means is you've gotten through that level of gold, you got to the plating, you got to the gold filled, and now you know it is not gold. When the third streak disappears, it is gold filled, gold plated. Stay away from it. And that's very important. Because like I said, a lot of these people that know what they're doing, they don't want you to file it. But you have to insist to at least get the 3 rubs, and you have to be firm. Now again, you don't want to damage something that might be rare, but you want to rub it hard enough where when you put that third streak on, you know that the base metal, if any, is there. If all 3 streaks stay the same, then most likely, again, you can never say 100%, but most likely it's going to be a gold item. So that's how you test for gold filled. Now we're going to probably move on to some other testing. Okay, so all I have is the 14 karat acid, the 18 karat acid, and the 22 karat acid. How do I test for platinum? Again, these are the acids that we grew up with. These are the only acids you need. Platinum is one of the only metals that when you rub it on here, just like I'm going to go ahead and rub my loop one more time here. You rub your loop on here, get a firm streak. You take your 22 karat acid and you put it directly on the streak. Platinum is the only metal that I've found that will not disappear. Stainless steel will disappear. All these space age metals will disappear. The exception may be chromium cobalt, which is in the white dental gold, but we'll talk about dental gold later. And the other thing is, of course, aluminum. Believe it or not, platinum won't disappear, which is one of the densest metals, and aluminum won't disappear. But aluminum is one of the lightest metals, guys. So if you're picking some piece of metal up and it sits here and tests, but it feels like a feather in your hand, it's aluminum. But if it's a dense metal and you've done a proper test, remember, always make sure it's not plated. You can always file the piece directly, drop the 14 karat acid on it, make sure there's no reaction. Once you get that no reaction, put the streak on the stone, put the platinum acid, not the platinum acid, put the 22 karat acid on there, and it will not move. It will not change. You could come back 30 seconds, 40 seconds, a minute later, the streak will still be there, which indicates it is indeed platinum. So that's again how we test for platinum. We're going to go ahead and go on and talk about how do we test for other things right now. So how do we test for palladium? Palladium, in history of all metals, has been about a third of the price of gold, maybe a fourth or fifth of the price of platinum. But right now, palladium is more expensive than gold or platinum. Why? I don't know. But let's talk about testing it. Basically, when you have palladium, you basically rub it on the stone here. You use the 18 karat acid. You drop the 18 karat acid directly on the streak. So basically, if it is palladium, it will turn I'd say yellowish green color. That's what my chart says. It's basically a whitish yellowish green color. And it's very pronounced. You'll see a definite change. It will leave a streak on the stone. So again, this test is really not very important because most palladium that you're going to buy is in coin form. Palladium was used the only time I know of palladium being used in this country for jewelry was during World War II. And that's because there was a shortage on platinum. It was being used as a strategic metal. So they used palladium instead of platinum and gold. And so there's very little of that jewelry that exists. So again, this is a very inconsequential test. But again, if you have any questions, you can always call the experts. And you probably will need to on palladium. We'll move on to testing something else. Let's talk about testing for dental gold. Now, what is dental gold? Well, I've got some dental gold in my teeth. When I went to the dentist and I had to get a cap put on, they were all set to put porcelain crowns on, and I thought, I don't want porcelain, I want gold. So I actually had gold. So there's gold in their teeth in there right now. So, but what that means is a lot of times people, either for several different reasons, they have a crown removed or a piece of dental removed, and they get the gold back, and they want to sell it. So they basically, or they save it because they don't know what to do with it. Sometimes that's when you can run across it in a storage unit or at a sale at the flea market. But what do we do? How do we test for it? Dental gold is made up of all kinds of different things: silver, palladium, space age metals I don't even know the names of, and gold. Most yellow dental gold is 16 karat gold on the average. You will get some dental gold that might be 18 karat, but rarely is it pure. But it does look pure, it does look higher karat. When you test it, again, dental gold is very much the same test. You take the tooth, you file the tooth a little bit, drop the 14 karat acid, no reaction. You know it's at least 14 karat. You take it, you rub it on the stone here if it's yellow, and you drop the 18 karat acid. Most of the times it will stay. Why is that? Because these space age metals don't disappear. These other metals don't react the same way. So it looks like it's 18 karat, but I can assure you on the average it is 16 karat gold. Now, what are some of the pitfalls with dental gold? White dental gold. White dental gold is usually not dental gold. A lot of times people have these big bridges and they pull them out and there's teeth in them. They're very stiff, but they're a shiny white metal. You can't barely bend them at all. Remember, gold is very malleable. So if you have a big piece of gold, you might be able to bend it a little bit. But when you have a piece of white dental gold, it's shiny and you can't bend it. It's called chromium cobalt, not worth anything. Just to let you know, I sent in a box of bridges. I got them from a dentist that had been in business. Sent them to my refinery. They're like, what the heck is this crap? They refined it. There's nothing in it worth anything. So it isn't even worth anything. The other thing is, well, what if you have a piece of white dental gold? Sometimes you have white dental gold and you test it. It kind of tests, kind of doesn't. But you feel it and it's kind of heavy. You think there might be something in there. It's probably palladium, silver, gold. We buy it for, maybe a third of what we would pay for the normal dental gold. So if you're a professional out there and you want to take a chance because there's no guarantees and you got a piece of white dental gold, buy it for a third of what you would normally pay and you might make money, might not. So that's why I always recommend stay away from white dental gold, or again, send it to the experts. We can tell you. So that's how we test for dental gold, and that's some of the things to look for. All right, we've talked a lot about testing metals, testing different things. Let's talk about some of the things you might expect to see clearing out a garage sale, clearing out a storage unit, at an auction. Let's talk about unstamped silver jewelry. Again, most silver jewelry is stamped couple of instances where it might not be stamped as Native American jewelry, turquoise with the coral and handmade from out in the Southwest. Most of that's not marked sterling. Most of that is just silver, but the American Indians decided, we're not going to stamp this. But again, you can use your non-destructive tests because you don't want to destroy a piece of turquoise jewelry. Because we were just talking with the camera crew here. They said, what about silver? What's going on here? I said, well, most silver's scrap. But Native American jewelry does sell for a premium. So you would probably take a look at it, maybe file it lightly. If it doesn't react, maybe use the test. Make sure it does the nice bluish white color on there. And that is something that could be not marked, that is still worth something. Let's talk about pocket watches. Oh my gosh. This could be a separate subject on its own and some of the things I've seen with people. Pocket watches are always well-marked gold, but there's a lot of tricks there. Now, if it says 15 years, 20 years, 25 years warranted, it's not. If it says warranted 14 karat, it probably is. Warranted 18 probably is, but why am I saying probably? Because just like today, 100 years ago, there was bad guys, and as my dad would say, no good nicks in the business, trying to make you buy something for something that wasn't. One of these cases was the Duber Watch Company. I have had probably in my lifetime 20 to 50 dealers come in here with a pocket watch that they said, Chris, I bought this watch. I know it's gold. It's marked 14 karat Duber. It's gold. And they look and they bring it to me, and I look at it and I start thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to tell this guy that he just spent $500 on a watch that's worth $50? So what I do is I take a look at the watch. I check near the hinges. I examine it with a loupe very closely. That's one of the things you can do. I examine it for wear spots. You will see wear spots in gold filled, and then you can drop the acid directly on the wear spots without damaging it, and it will bubble green. Now, what if it's in really great shape? Well, another thing that you can do is you can take a look at the inside of the case, and there's a lip on the inside of a pocket watch case. Now, when you open up the watch, it flips open. The dealers will know what I'm talking about. If you don't, you can always come in and ask me. You open the watch, it flips open. You drop the acid between the lip of the watch and the back of the case, and I guarantee you, if it's not gold, there's a solder spot in there. It will start bubbling green. And what is the rule? If it bubbles anything, it's not gold. And again, I know you want the watch to be gold because you paid $500 for it, or you want the watch to be gold because someone's offering it for $100, and if it's gold, it's worth $500. But that's what happens. 90% of the time that we run into the problems here is when someone brings something in and we think, oh, we're getting a good deal on this, and we don't take our time with it. We don't do all of our tests. We don't do our due diligence, and we get caught. Another thing that you can get caught with is a lot of these things that are coming in from China. I have separate videos on these. There's lots of fake Chinese coins coming in. Again, that's a different video I think I've already done. But again, one of the biggest things that I would recommend is when someone's trying to lay you away, and what I mean is make you pay money for something that's not real, it's generally a bigger item. It's an item that's going to cost you $500 or more if you make a mistake. So anytime you have a big, heavy item, anytime that you're going to lose whatever you're not comfortable losing in your budget. For me, it's $500. I don't want to lose less than that, but for me, I get pretty upset with my staff if they buy something that can cost me $500 and they don't say, I did the acid test, I did the file test, I did the streak test. I guarantee it. Most of the times, well, I forgot to do that. I forgot to do that. Do your due diligence. If it's going to cost you money, definitely file it, get it done, and do it right. That's what's going to save you. Again, take a look at the piece as a whole. If you look at it, I tell people all the time, this is one of my big things, is they'll call me up, they'll say, Chris, I got this piece in front of me. Is it this? Is it that? I walk them through the tests, and they'll say, it still looks a little funny to me. You know what I tell them? You're there. It's your gut. If your gut's telling you there's something wrong with it, this is more for the people on my side of the counter. If your gut tells you there's something wrong with it, or the deal's too good to be true, or something just doesn't quite jive, stay away from it. You don't want to make that mistake because when your gut tells you something, there's a reason for that. So trust it. So again, we'll go into a few more things, and we're getting ready to close everything out. Okay, so we've talked a lot about testing. I've showed you the different acids that we use. But please remember, these are guidelines. These are not, you cannot trust just one thing. I've been doing this since I was 7 years old. I'm 53. I've bought hundreds of millions of dollars worth of scrap gold across the counters in my lifetime. And I wish I was exaggerating, but I'm not. I've got the little acid marks on my fingers to prove it, and one little scar from my leg. What I recommend to you is, if you have an acid test kit, always remember how dangerous it can be. Never leave it unguarded. Again, I don't sell them. I'm not recommending them. I'm just trying to tell you, if you went online and bought one and you're getting into the business, respect it. Because if you don't respect it, you're going to end up with some problems that you didn't expect. You don't want any grandkids getting hurt, any pets getting hurt, any kind of tissues that you use, throw away in a separate canister. Never dispose of this into the trash. You have to take it to a chemical drop-off spot. And remember, if you do have questions, I can't touch on everything here. Please send me an email. I'll do the best I can. We're a brick and mortar store, been doing this for almost 50 years now. We are all about relationships. We will help you. We want to buy from you. If you don't want to buy, no problem. I feel like if you don't send me an email and send me a question, I'll never get a chance to buy from you. So my information is always free. Now, if you send me 20 emails, I might only answer a couple of them. But, I'll do the best I can. If you have something that you do seriously want to know about, I can generally tell a lot from a picture. So if you want to include a picture, dimensions, a weight, maybe explain what tests you've already done to the item, I'll do the best I can for you. I've tested everything from tin bars to things. Somebody brought something in they thought was platinum from a dam. Believe it or not, I didn't know what it was either. We had to send that to the refinery. And I guess that's why I'll close this out. These are general tests, but they're not the end-all be-all. The end-all be-all is my refinery. So if there is something you have any questions about, I can send that off for you. And you would only need to do that in cases where you have an opportunity to buy a large amount of something and you're not sure what it is. So you take one small item in, send it to the refinery just to make sure, get the exact calculations, and then we can come back with you and say, hey, this one was worth a lot of money and the other ones probably are too. But again, always be careful, because remember, in this business, just like my dad said many, many years ago, the day after the first coin was made, the first counterfeit was made. In this business of buying and selling gold, it can be costly if you make a mistake. There are people out there preying on us, on the actual people buying it, by trying to get us to buy things that aren't gold. And there's also the general public. I mean, you guys are out there buying things from other people, and they're trying to deceive. So please remember, if you need any consultations, we're here for you. I hope this video was informative. And if you did like it, please remember to subscribe to my channel and press the like button. Thank you very much.